Or if you don't, you control any different. You control any different.
I wasn't
There.
told.
Okay.
Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, March 10th Committee of the Whole meeting. My name is Councillor Jennifer Miller. I'll be your chair for this evening. I'd ask you to pause and reflect as I read the land acknowledgement. On March 10th, 2025, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all of our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. I'll call the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. We have a motion to the approval of the agenda, moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor McGuire, that the March 10th Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be approved as circulated. We have an echo. All right.
All in favor?
Oh, sorry. All in favor? I was obsessed with the echo. Sorry about that.
Now you said it twice.
Does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest in general nature thereof? Seeing none. We have a motion for approval of minutes, moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that the minutes of the February 24th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting be approved as circulated. All in favor? Carried. We have a delegation this evening, and I'd like to welcome Stephanie Gray, who's the coordinator of the Lanark County Situation Table and the Community Plan for Safety and Wellbeing. Stephanie, if you'd like to come up. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. You can hear me okay? Yes? Good.
We can hear you twice. We're just trying to figure out if we can.
This is the first time
Interesting.
Solve this issue.
I just wanted to mention I'm quite hard of hearing, so if you have questions after, I may need a little bit of help hearing you. That is weird.
If we could just pause for 1 minute.
Yeah. Madam Chair, I'm wondering, can you shut the microphones?
I don't think we can. I've got Corey and Sean both looking into it right now.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I don't know.
We can try.
Try?
We can try now.
How does that sound?
Better.
That sounds good. Okay.
Thanks for
I'd like to thank you, Mayor Panko and Chair, for having me tonight, members of council. I'm really happy to be here on behalf of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Advisory Committee to present our updated Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan for Lanark County and Smiths Falls for 2025 to 2029. And I'd just like to mention that our co-chair, Chief Empey, is here tonight, and we have Councillor McKenna here as well, who's a member of the advisory committee. So glad to be here. And do I just tell you when the next slide is? Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Just a few items in terms of background. As you know, the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan is mandated under the Community Safety and Policing Act for all municipalities to complete. And the Act outlines the requirements for having an advisory committee representing a number of different sectors, which we have. The original plan that was approved by all the local municipalities in 2019 It is due to be updated and needs to be filed with the ministry as of July 1st, 2025, which is why we're here now. And I just wanted to also note that these plans, both of the plans, fall under a community safety planning model that the county has been working on since about 2015. And it's thanks to a series of provincial grants that have helped with the coordination of these activities, including my position and the ability to go forward with the plan on behalf of the county and Smiths Falls as well. Next slide, please. So under the Act, the Police Services Act was the original act that had this mandated, and the new act deems that any plans that were under the Community Safety and Policing Act are acceptable and have been adopted under that act. The only regulation currently that exists under the Community Safety and Policing Act has two pieces. One being that once you have adopted a plan, it needs to be published on the internet within 30 days and in any other method you wish. And also that the municipalities need to review these plans every 4 years after adoption. Any plan that was approved, like ours, before 2021, needs to be submitted and updated for July 1st. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of the members of our advisory committee, and you can see that it does represent a number of sectors. We could have a ton more people on this committee. We have such a rich diversity of agencies throughout the county, but we are trying to sort of consolidate some things in terms of sectors as well. But when there is an opportunity or a need to consult with anybody who's not represented on the advisory committee, we reach out and conduct some consultations as well. That was part of the plan as well. Next slide. In terms of our approach and methodology, we began working on the updated plan in 2023, and a big key piece to that was looking at the existing plan and all the progress updates that we had been working on an annual basis. As a result of that review, we settled on identifying 4 key themes as part of the new plan, which was a little bit different than the 12 priority risk areas we had the last time. We conducted some community consultation through surveys. We had a community survey that had 393 responses, and agency surveys that had responses from a wide range of respondents as well. We had 37 for that. We held a virtual partner day that attracted 23 participants from a number of community agencies. We held the Council, Police Services Board, and CPAC focus session. It had 9 attendees representing 6 different municipalities. We had 2 from Smiths Falls for that. And we conducted focus groups with the Successful Aging Advisory Committee, the Lanark County Child and Youth Services Collaborative, and the Sexual Assault Domestic Violence Advisory Committee, along with a number of interviews and discussions with various people. We collected a great deal of data and reviewed that, which led to the identification of numerous assets and gaps that we found, as well as the opportunity to draft some outcome statements. And then we developed goals, measures, and outcomes. The advisory committee approved this plan on February 10th, which has led to me visiting all of the local municipalities for review and approval. Next slide, please. Just to quickly talk about the outcomes, this is where we kind of want to see ourselves positioned at the end of the plan. It looks a little lofty in some ways, but it's good to have goals, right? So, so basically, we're looking at Lanark County and Smiths Falls being a community of opportunity and equity for diverse populations, where people can access basic needs of housing, food, and a livable income, where residents respect the legacy of stewardship by the Indigenous people who lived here before and continue to care for the earth in a way that will sustain it for 7 generations. We're a community of collaboration where we work together to benefit the people who live here. we offer a wide range of health and social services that are accessible in a number of different ways and within a time frame that would reduce or prevent emergency or crisis situations. And we have healthy relationships that are respectful and welcoming neighbors where people look out for one another and residents are safe from violence in all forms. And next slide. Here you can see the 4 different themes that we settled on for the plan. So we have affordability and quality of life, health, violence against persons, and priority populations and diversity. And then a number of pillars are part of all of those different themes where we've set the goals and the measures and the strategies that we want to use to try to accomplish the work that is to be done. And those sections also include the data, like the background information around where we arrived at the things that we did. The next slide. So some highlights from the plan. As I mentioned before, building off the previous plan was really key to show the progress that was made from where we started. Very early on, it became quite evident, and I don't think this is surprising, that housing, food security, and income are priorities. It was bumped to the top because we know that if we can manage some of those issues, it will help in other areas as well around health and mental health and various other places where we're seeing gaps. We also wanted to identify as one of our assets that we have such a strong record of collaboration here, and it's a big asset. These plans aren't intended to reinvent the wheel, so recognizing the assets that we have is really important. It's also really difficult to get all of them into the plan because there are so many large and small programs throughout the county and Smiths Falls that really work together to help our folks. We also identified a lot of risks associated with children and youth, and there's some key areas where that needs attention. We also noted the importance of recognizing and building on those assets. The next slide. So the whole plan was in your package. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through the goals, but just to highlight in these areas where, so for the affordability and quality of life goals, there's some emphasis on the income and employment, housing and homelessness, food insecurity and food access. The health unit played a big role there in identifying some of the root causes of food insecurity and food access. So there's some good stuff to build from there. Transportation, with climate change and environment, that's a new pillar in the plan this time. Obviously an important consideration that many communities are undertaking work on. We found through the consultations that we did, there's a real strong appetite in the community for citizens wanting to do more. They want to know how they can help and what they can do. So that's something that we've kind of emphasized. And the belonging and civic engagement piece is a new pillar as well, with a goal of reducing isolation, increasing inclusion, looking at volunteerism. And in that section, there's some opportunities for municipalities, and this really came out in the focus session, to look at ways where maybe the plan can be incorporated a little bit more with some municipal things like your strategic plans, or even just greater opportunities for communication and information sharing around the progress that's happening with the plans. Next slide. Under health, we have physical health and mental health. Access to services was a consideration that we talked about and gathered information on. And with mental health, the complexity of issues that are out there was really recognized. And I think we recognize at the advisory committee that there's only so much we can do municipally to manage some of the big issues that are around health and access to care and things like that. But there are some things we can do locally to at least provide greater information about what services are there and how long it might take to access some of those services. The next slide. With violence against persons, I just want to highlight that the sexual assault, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and gender-based violence pillar is there, which we had before as well. But I like to highlight this because it represents one of the recommendations from the Renfrew inquest, which the county and local municipalities have really been paying attention to in terms of declaring IPV an epidemic and things. So having that in there is meeting one of those recommendations. We also are looking towards working with some of our provincial colleagues on creating a zero femicide community. I don't have a lot of information about that yet because it's new, but it's something that we're looking at working on. And then hate-motivated crime, children, elderly, and others are in there as well with some specific goals related to some of those populations. And the next slide. This one really comes down to, for all of these different populations, the overall goal in each is to just be more, to have that support in the community for some of those specific populations. There's some different goals and strategies and they're related to each one. Next slide. So in terms of council responsibilities upon adoption, the key thing, I've outlined here some of the different pieces of the Act that are relevant. So the first one refers to that regulation around publication. The next one talks about how municipalities that adopt the plan can work towards taking any actions that are in the plan for them to take and encouraging other entities as well. And I do get a number of questions about what exactly does that mean? And a few examples of that can be one that was really prominent in the last plan was around advocacy. We often asked municipal leaders to advocate on behalf of different issues that had come up. I can think of like mental health and MCERT as just one example of that. Also helping to communicate initiatives that are undertaken in the plan. There's a number of examples throughout the plan of places where municipalities could have a role in helping to communicate some of the things that are happening. An increased connection between municipalities and the objectives of this plan, which is something that we can work with local councils specifically on, what does that actually look like? There were several items in affordability and quality of life that have some municipal tie-ins around, especially like with housing and things like that. There's EDI training, options around vacant housing and housing initiatives, encouraging climate action, emergency planning, things that you're already doing in a lot of cases. And this is just an opportunity for us to measure how it's going sort of on a grander scale. The next slide. Oh, sorry, I guess I didn't finish the rest of that. Just a couple of other points, but the Act, there's the monitoring piece where there's no actual regulation for that yet, but because we do the progress updates, there's an opportunity there if it's ever required that we have a system in place to proceed with that. There's the review every 4 years, and then if the ministry's looking for specific information, that can come through the advisory committee and the coordinator piece as well, but there's no regulation around that yet either. So in terms of key actions, the main one is to adopt the plan and champion it by July 1st. There's the specific municipal actions. That piece, if there's anything ever specific to a council, it would come back to the council. We wouldn't just, okay, this needs to be done. So we'd always be coming back to you. It's also good to note that the implementation teams will be undertaking action. So as we move forward with the plan, there'll be some different working groups or implementation teams. There'll be a whole piece come together that outlines maybe some more specific strategies to meet the goals. And then that would lead into the annual reporting if regulated. And it's also important to note that the community partners around the table take on a lot of the work. Many of the goals and the strategies that are in this plan are very specific to, healthcare and things that aren't part of the municipal purview. So they take on a lot of those pieces. And then, of course, revisiting it in 4 years. And then lastly, this is just a suggested motion if you are interested in looking at this in terms of approval of the plan. And I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. We appreciate this.
So I tried to go as fast as I could.
You did well. I'll open it up to my colleagues for any questions or comments. Councillor McKenna.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Stephanie. And the chair just pointed out the amount of work that Stephanie puts into creating this. It's a lot of work. It's a year or more in the making. I view it that many municipalities are guided by what we call master plans, recreation master plan, downtown improvement master plan. When we think about the health and well-being and safety of our population, I'm hoping that the town of Smith Falls and the county will adopt this as our master plan and reference it in all of the work that we have ahead of us and refer back to it, because it's a working, living, breathing document. It's also another great example of the level of collaboration between the County of Lanark and the town of Smith Falls. We work on many, many projects together, and I haven't found one that hasn't gone well. And so this is just another great example of that. Finally, we talked about this in our work group in this world of polycrisis that we're living in, that we feel we don't have a lot of control over much. This plan actually provides us with a guideline of how we can take back some control in our lives and help our citizens and the residents across Lanark County, improve their well-being and safety. So I'm just thrilled to endorse it. And when we get to the point of putting a motion forward, probably in the next week or so, I'll be hope that I can be the one to bring it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKenna. I'm glad you brought up what you did.
Other questions or comments? Mayor Panko?
Sure. Thanks, Stephanie. And it's great to go back and reflect on, I guess, where we were and where we are today, and the reality that the challenges that we're facing today are so different than what they were 5 years ago. And I see a lot of parallels here, consistencies with even our own strategic plan, the priorities we've developed for council for this term. So it's encouraging. I think it's Councilor McKenna says it's a high-level document. I guess we should be reviewing on a very frequent basis. I know we'll have sort of an annual update to it, but something I think all of us need to keep in our back of our minds when we're approaching decisions. And I think it really speaks to the overall health and wellness of our community, and the fact that we need to address these and not just address, but actions which are going to make a difference. And the challenge we face, of course, is the limited powers we have, and so much of this lies within the provincial responsibility. And I guess the hope that the province is probably hearing from every municipality in the province, which is redoing their plans and expressing, I'm sure, very, very similar outcomes. So from an advocacy standpoint, these are a number of the items here are things that we've worked on and we will continue to work on and support. And I think it's a great piece, and I think it really identifies the key issues we all need to be working on. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for providing us with suggested wording. Our clerk appreciates
Cover County
that.
Council, I know how it goes.
And if there's no further comments, then I'm sure we'll see this on a council meeting in the coming weeks. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
CAO Morris, any director's reports tonight?
Just one this evening, Madam Chair, from myself. So just to let the council and the community know that we've undertaken a review of our communication platforms and strategy, and we've looked at the various social media platforms that we use, and we've made a decision to discontinue using X, formerly known as Twitter. Engagement has been low, but we will continue to use perhaps more effective platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So that will take effect tomorrow.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay. No committee of the whole consent reports, no in-camera sessions, so we'll move into our priority issues and reports, and we have a building activity report with Manager Willows.
Good evening, Madam Speaker and the Mayor, Panko, and council members and staff. I'm pleased to present the 2024 Building Activity and Building Permit Fee Report. This report provides detailed review of the building and development activity within the town in the past year, including a comparative analysis to 2023. Additionally, this report ensures compliance with the Ontario Building Code Act, which mandates the publication of an annual report on fees related to the building permits and associated services. This report provides council with an overview of key statistics from January 1st to December 31st for both 2023 and 2024. By comparing these years, we can identify patterns in development and activity and evaluate the effectiveness of our fee structure. The financial portion of this report ensures that the permit fees are sufficient to cover the service costs as required by the Building Code Act. Some key overviews of 2024. In 2024, there was 104 building permits issued. 86 of those were residential. 18 of those were ICI, or Industrial, Commercial, Institutional. This represents a decrease over 2023. Fee revenue. The total fees collected for building permits and inspections in 2024 amounted to approximately $130,000. This revenue is used to support the building service operations and ensure cost recovery as mandated by the Building Code Act. Some major projects to note: there are several large projects in 2024. One was the hospital, where they expanded the isolation room in the emergency department. The water tower, which is a great example of a large project. An internal renovation of the independent grocer, along with 23 new house builds. Comparison to 2023. In 2024 highlighted notable changes from the previous year: a drop in permit fees issued, a change of residential versus commercial development activities, and trending costs of construction. This report serves as an essential tool for council to monitor and manage the town's growth effectiveness. By reviewing these stats, we can assess the health of the local construction industry, ensure that permit fees remain appropriate, and support strategic planning and future development. Once endorsed, the financial summary, which is Appendix B, will be published on the town's website for public reference. I'm happy to address any questions and any further details. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'll turn to my colleagues. I can't see Councillor Brennan anymore.
So I've asked them to bring him back.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Councillor Robinson?
Thanks, Madam Chair. More of a inquiry. Have you got any idea why such a drastic drop between 2023 and 2024?
Well, I think it was a significant drop across the construction industry in general, not just in the town of Smith Falls. From my colleagues in other municipalities, they represented the same kind of drop. But a big one for us was our subdivision was full. So we were waiting for the next phases of the Parkview subdivision and the Campbell subdivision to come online.
Just follow up to that, then possibly this year, we're going to see an increase go
Through
again.
the chair, yes. Well, we've seen a number of single-family dwellings coming out of the Campbell subdivision so far, and we have 2 permits issued so far on the Parkview subdivision, which hopefully will get going with a little bit more steam.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for working with our residents and our developers.
you.
Smith Falls is open for business, and we appreciate all the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have another presentation this evening, and Director Clark will speak to that.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to point out that I've been here for almost 2 years, which is wild to me. It feels like no time at all. So, but I'm really excited, and I'm glad you have put up with me this far. So appreciate it. Anyway, tonight is a big night for us because obviously we've been talking about the Youth Arena feasibility study for some time. And so since joining the town nearly 2 years ago, I recognized that the Youth Arena was in dire need of direction. The facility has done yeoman service for the community for a number of years, but aging infrastructure, increasing demands, and the changing recreational landscape mean that we need to take a step back and ask ourselves, what's the best investment for our users, for our community, for ourselves, for our staff, and for the region. This feasibility study wasn't just about sorting out how to go about repairing and replacing worn and end-of-life infrastructure. It was about making sure that any investment we do make is the right one, not only for today, but also for the next 30 years. When this discussion first came to council, there was also clear direction to explore all options, including alternative year-round recreational indoor spaces, as I know that's something that we don't have much of. Though I'll leave our consultants from New Stadia Recreation who are here today to share the results of the study. One thing is very clear: our community and this entire region values our recreational spaces. I don't mean to brag, but we had over 1,000 responses to our surveys, and we had more than 100 folks come to our public open houses. We spent numerous time. I had nothing to do with it. It was the consultants. They spent numerous hours in conversation with our users, and it was very clear people care about recreation in this community, and it brings a huge quality of life improvement to our residents and to those around us. So as such, we also understood the demand for multi-use year-round programming is growing. And like so many municipalities across the country, we are faced with the reality of increasing costs in recreational infrastructure. I'm imagining there's a bit of sticker shock, but we'll talk about that. So, of course, it is a real thing. These are big numbers. They're not small, and they are legacy numbers. But I want to point out that this is not a situation that is unique to this community. Municipalities everywhere are seeing rapid cost escalations for major capital projects like this one. That said, recreation is not just an expense, and I would ask us all to consider as we move forward, no matter what we decide, again, I say we, it's always up to you guys, that no matter what we decide as a community, it's actually an investment in our community's well-being. So we talk about crime reduction, we talk about crime prevention, we talk about positive youth engagement. All of those things can be supported by adequate recreational facilities. An investment in our community's well-being and economic growth and our ability to offer a higher quality of life for all residents also encourages people to stay in this community. The feasibility study presents options ranging from a minor retrofit to full redevelopment. The latter is an incredibly ambitious and impactful project. I did tell you I was going to be expensive when I got here, albeit one that is grounded in comprehensive analysis. It demonstrates the need for regional collaboration and holds the potential of long-term financial sustainability. So this evening, I'm asking council to receive this report, endorse its findings in principle only. I'm also seeking direction to undertake next steps, refining costs, engaging regional partners in cost-sharing discussions, and developing potentially financial strategy if we choose to make this vision a reality. There is no commitment. There's an opportunity for us to back away tomorrow if you have buyer's remorse. We haven't spent any more money. This is, of course, not a decision to be taken lightly, but is one that will shape the future, hopefully, of recreation in Smiths Falls broadly and beyond. And I look forward to the discussion. So I will turn it over to our folks here from New Stadia, and they can introduce themselves. Come on up.
And just while they're coming to the front, I would just reiterate what Director Clark said. There are 4 recommendations in the staff recommendation tonight. So we will be breaking those into chunks so you can say yes or no to each of those 4 pieces. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Council, it's a pleasure for us to present this report. We've been working on this for the past 6 months, so we're really pleased to support it tonight. I think Nick and I have met most of the council members, with the exception of Councillor McGuire. So nice to meet you. I introduced our team: Nick Frizzell, Senior Vice President with New Stadia Recreation. He worked alongside with myself. Marin Kotov, who lives here in Ottawa. He's works for Architecture 4090, did the concept designs. He's one of our sub-consultants, one of the 3 sub-consultants we hired to deliver this proposal. And he will speak to you about the overall design and his rationale behind the design later on in the presentation. And myself, I'm Ed Pavey, I'm the Senior Vice President with New Stadia Recreation. Okay, if we can go over to slide 2. So we're going to provide a summary of our presentation. We're going to start with an executive summary overview, a snapshot of the complete study. We're going to talk about the community context and needs, present the analysis that relates to the current and future local and regional demographics. and how these demographics analysis may affect the overall demand and delivery of community recreation facility services for this community. Stakeholder engagement, we will outline the key findings from surveys, community stakeholder engagements that we conducted. From our needs analysis, we present 4 options as it relates to the future of the youth arena and the overall recreation services delivery in the local and regional community. From the options, we have outlined a preferred recommendation, option 1B, which will be an arena, a new arena and field house, which we'll speak to more in greater detail. We will also provide some financial analysis that will include cost estimates and options provided, and potential funding opportunities that could be incorporated as if the project moves forward. We're a unique opportunity here. There's both federal and provincial funding opportunities here. When you do see this price tag, I know it's a bit of a sticker shock, but there are funding opportunities, and we'll talk about that more. There could be an opportunity where potentially at least more than 50% of the project could be funded through available programs that are available right now, and we'll talk about those options. We'll also highlight the overall economic and community impact. So you're not going to evaluate just on the economic impact. There's community impact, the well-beings it brings to the benefits of the overall community. Lastly, council should decide to move forward with the project, and we will outline an implementation plan, what it could look like, and it also would include a project delivery schedule. Next slide. So the executive summary, just quickly go through this, and we'll repeat some of these main points a little bit later through the presentation. The youth arena facility study was conducted in 2 phases, assesses the future of Smith Falls recreation infrastructure. The study aimed to evaluate the condition of the existing youth arena, determine community needs, and explore potential redevelopment options that align with long-term municipal and regional recreational goals. Given the aging state of the current facility and increasing demand for versatile recreation spaces, the study provides a roadmap for sustainable investment in sports and community activities. Phase 1 focused on gathering data through community engagement, facility condition assessment, and analysis of demographic trends. The town's population is currently approximately 10,500 and is expected to grow over the next 10 years. Nearly 26% of the population is age 65 and older, compared to 18.5% of the national average, highlighting the need for age-friendly recreation services. The median household income in Smith Falls is approximately $61,000, significantly lower than the provincial median of $91,000. This reinforces the importance and affordability of community recreation services in this community. This phase helped identify key priorities such as preserving ice sports, improving accessibility, and incorporating multi-use spaces. Phase 2 built on these findings by developing cost estimates, financial feasibility models, and economic impact statements. It also explored various funding opportunities and provided an implementation strategy to ensure a financially and operationally viable project moving forward. Cost projects include a range from the low end from $5 million, which would be a retrofit of the existing youth arena that would exclude a field house, to a full development, which include a new single pad arena and a new field house, with the cost estimates coming between $42 and $49 million. Economic impact analysis indicate that a new facility could generate increased revenue through tournaments, expanded recreational offerings, and community engagement. This study was undertaken to ensure that Smith Falls remains a regional hub for recreational activities accommodating both current and future generations. The recommendations aim to balance financial sustainability, community engagement, and long-term usability, positioning the town for continued growth in sport and recreation programming. Next slide, please. Smith Falls serves as a central recreation hub for both residents and neighboring municipalities. The current population is expected to grow with a shifting demographic that includes a rising number of young families and an aging population. The regional catchment area has a population of over 48,000 people. That includes Smith Falls and the local regional partners that you currently serve. The existing facility serves both local teams, regional visitors, but aging infrastructure limits programming capacity. Community engagement highlighted the strong support for preserving ICE programming while expanding offerings to include fitness, wellness, and other indoor spaces. Aging population, increased number of seniors require accessible recreation space and tailored programming such as pickleball courts and other active and passive recreation programming opportunities. Growing number of young families, new housing developments are attracting younger residents, necessitating youth-focused programming, including team sports, skating, and multi-sport recreational opportunities. Economic considerations. While lower medium household incomes levels compared to provincial levels reinforce the importance of affordable recreation programming. Slide 5, please. Facility condition assessment. The existing youth arena was built in the 1970s and faces significant operational deficiencies. These buildings have a lifespan, typically it's 40 years, and that building is quickly approaching that. The building's roof decks and joints show signs of corrosion, which could impact the future structural integrity of the building. The mechanical systems, including the HVAC, dehumidification, and heating units, are outdated and inefficient, leading to higher energy costs and inconsistent climate control. Electrical systems such as distribution and lighting require modernization to meet current safety and efficiency standards. Additionally, the facility lacks adequate dressing rooms, proper accessibility features, sufficient seating for spectators, limiting its ability to meet the future needs of the users. From our perspective, given the current condition of the youth arena, we highly advise that doing nothing is not really an option for your youth arena. You got a couple of years you might have in there, but because of the structural and integrity of the building, just the overall condition, that's something, it does require immediate attention the next couple of years. I'll turn it over to Nick.
Thank you, Ed. Next slide, please. So just want to walk through some of the stakeholder and community engagement process that we did. We find it was a very robust process, actually. We conducted one open house, which brought a lot of the communities involved. We had 7 different online surveys that we put out and 28 stakeholder sessions, individual stakeholder sessions. So, an exercise of this nature has brought a lot of information together, and talking to the community and their needs was very important. With the survey, 721 responses were indicated, bringing in about a representation of 1,593 residents of Smith Falls. That's about a 17% representation of the population, which is a good number to see. When we do these exercises, actually, we see a lot lower than that typically when we do the exercise. So it was a promising number. We also understood we needed to reach out to the surrounding townships, and we did 5 individual surveys to the surrounding townships to understand their needs as well. The community open house was very important. We were able to engage with the public, talk to individuals in one-on-one, and talk about what their needs were, what they thought of our designs as we posted the designs on boards, and really get to engage with the community and see what their needs were. The appealing designs were noted, and addressing the community needs was important. The user group feedbacks was also vitally important. We reached out to each individual user group, talked to them about their programs, where they're growing, where they see more needs, and come to understand what their improvements look like. So concerns about limited ice availability were noted and scheduled, and support for an expanded multi-use space was very important in their minds. Finally, we also talked individually with regional municipalities, Smith Falls Mayor and Council individually, and staff. So the key comments were noted was transparency and community engagement, and strong support for regional collaboration was noted from all groups. So the takeaways from our exercise were, there's very good support for two ice surfaces from the local user groups. They really want to see two. They're not looking for a third ice surface by any means, but two is where they like to see it, and one is not conducive to their needs at this time. There is demand for the multi-use spaces, the basketball, volleyball, pickleball groups. They are using the current school system, and they find that from their perspective is they don't have enough time, and they want to see more availability. And an indoor space like this can do that for them. Accessibility and affordability, as Ed noted, is a very big concern. Keeping it affordable for everybody is important. As we know, the tough economic times that we're in, it is important to do that for recreation. And desire for modernized facilities is vitally important. The youth arena with its dressing rooms, which are quite small, the need to improve helps the user groups in growing their programs. Next slide, please. So with that understanding and the condition that the youth arena is currently in and the feedback from the community, we went to the drawing board to come up with some options for redevelopment. So really, the options are 4 in total, but they were based around 1, renovating the existing facility and what that could look like. Upgrades to the mechanical, does it serve the long-term needs or not? 2, is a new arena development important? Is it construction of a modern facility with updated features going to meet these needs? Can we create sustainability with a new development? Or 3, do we look at a hybrid approach where we do some renovation also with a new development? So the study came up with 4 options, 1A, 1B, 2A, and 2B. Again, Marin's going to run through the design on 1A for us to note what it looks like. So I'm going to pass it over to Marin. Would you like to do that?
Thank you. So some of you were at the open house and we were able to speak with you and discuss what each option was. Option 1B, which is the preferred option, was developed given previous experiences, sometimes shared with New Stadia, some on our own, in different other municipalities. So the most important factor for placing the two arenas next to each other was the fact that when they're placed like that, there are some efficiencies. For example, we're already using some cost savings by sharing the corridor between the two arenas to service both rows of change rooms. This is a saving factor already. The other thing is that they can share the ice plant and the Zaboni pad, and these sharing services for both arenas are definitely efficiency from operational point of view, but also saving of the capital costs. The other factor in developing this plan was the fact that we had a lot of community spaces on second level, and all those spaces are connected, which is something that currently the youth arena and the memorial arena are somewhat disconnected from operational point of view, and particularly from users' point of view. So all those benefits altogether gives a lot of community space for developing program spacing, and also giving on both sides changing rooms which are higher quality and ice visibility between the two rings, particularly when it comes to creating a tournament atmosphere. This is very beneficial. Now, the field house in the back is, again, as I mentioned, connected at second level. It has a separate entrance. It could be disconnected from operational point of view if the users are given access to it, but it's a full interior field house. You build multiple sports, and as discussed at the open house, this could be further customized to accommodate sports that are there's interest in the community to develop those sports, or people who are interested to develop groups with these particular sports. But it also has new large change rooms to allow multiple users to switch change. So it creates opportunity to have a little bit of buffer time between different users, is different time slots, which brings effectiveness and higher rate of usability of the facility. And I'll leave next, if you have any questions, we can discuss further the layout of the proposed 1B option. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So we know, that's the designs are fantastic. Everything looks great, but again, it all comes down to the dollars and cents at the end of the day. So we're very aware that the capital cost of this is a significant adventure for any municipality. not just the size of Smith Falls, but anyone out there. So the cost breakdown estimate is anywhere from 41.4 to 49.6 million for this development. The new arena obviously taking the chunk of that at 22.6 to 27.2, and a new field house at 18.7, 22.4. The project can be phased in if it's so wanted. The field house can be a secondary development, but I think it's advantageous down the road that they both are there. From an operating perspective, the deficit we've seen in your current infrastructure is at about 500,000 per year. This actually can help that and reduce that deficit. The reason for that is a field house, its expenses aren't as demanding as an ice facility. It doesn't require the energy requirements that making ice would require. So the revenue generated can help offset some of the expenses of the arena itself. So they can lower that to, in our model, to about 162,000 per year. So you're saving about 350,000 per year on operational expenses. Now that would be once it's fully ramped up and going and all the users are in the building. But there's an opportunity there to reduce your expenses. From a funding perspective, of course, this won't be all fully burdened by Smith Falls solely. There's going to need to be some grants, both provincially, federally, to go after. And at this time, we understand that staff is actually put forward proposals to some programs up to 20 million. There's other programs could be 10 million. There's private and community-driven fundraising, anywhere from 5 to 10 million could be generated. So you're along the path already with those kind of numbers, getting to where you need to be. Next slide, please. From an economic perspective, there is definitely some benefits of the facility. What can be generated at that facility with events is going to be significant. So per year, we estimated 8 events, 4 in the ice surface, 4 in the field house. And that could bring about 700 participants and spectators per year to the facility, generating anywhere from 180 to 200,000 spend in the community. We used a STEAM model that generates, gives us the understanding of what people spend when they come to communities. And that's what the numbers provided to us. Job creation during the construction phase could generate anywhere from 100 to 150 jobs at the time. And then during the operational phase, there's 2 additional roles that we've identified from the current complement. But all in told, it's a boost to local economy. It brings in more funds to the community. It's going to reach out to hotels, businesses, retails, food and beverage, everything benefits. From a community benefits, you see improved social connections. Making this a true hub of recreation will be vitally important. We heard a lot of comments from the community about not just ice sports. It has to reach out to more than just people that play ice sports, and not everybody does. So reaching out with a field house brings that atmosphere and a true community hub. Health and well-being, we all understand the physical, mental, and active lifestyles that we all need to have, and we understand that recreation is vital for that. Youth development, both in skill development and a safe environment for the kids of the community to play, to thrive, to grow, is vitally important. Civic pride. I remember doing this exercise and I was talking to my father about it, and he's a big hockey person, but he said, there's a lot of good hockey players that came out of Smith Falls back in the day. That's civic pride, to understand that and know about your community and those people that come out of your community. And, I'm from Moncton, New Brunswick, and for my father to say that from the East Coast, that says something about Smith Falls. Crime prevention, as was noted in the previous presentation, it's vitally important. There's a need for these kind of facilities to help crime prevent. When youth have aspects in their lives with recreation and good leaders, they tend to stay away from that stuff. So it's good to have that, but make it affordable, of course. And then increased property values is one thing to consider when looking at this new development. I'm going to turn that back to Ed.
Slide 11. So we're going to talk about if council decides to move forward, what the next steps are. Our approach, or Stephanie talked about it. You're not asked to approve this project tonight. This is a multi-phased approach. We completed phase 1 of the project. There's 5 different phases that actually get you there, and you're really not committed until you get to when you sign a contract with the contract design builder, which is phase 3. So it's a multi-step process. Doing your due diligence. So the first phase was the business plan strategy, which we're presenting to you here today. So the main takeaways from the study were we certainly identified project need for a second ice pad, maintain a second ice pad, and the field house that Nick alluded to. And we also identified the building program, which is both an arena and a field house. So the next phase would be the project planning and due diligence phase. You would have to establish a steering committee from the community. Typically, it's community members and council members and staff to oversee development of the project. We would strongly recommend that you engage a project development manager to help manage the risks, risk assessment, and assist with the funding applications to the various levels of government. You certainly need to develop a partnership with the municipal partners for shared funding. You have a partnership agreement in place with the local partners, but I would certainly need to be updated to include the new proposed development. You need to secure funding. So the project could be that you can apply for funding. If funding doesn't come in, you might decide to revamp the project or kill it entirely. But you do have that opportunity to apply for that funding that is currently available right now. There's typically in the industry, there's three main ways to deliver these types of projects. There's the design bid, where you hire an architect, he designs the building, then you hire a contractor, and they're done in stages. The risk of this is obviously so we've seen a lot of projects where you go and hire a design, you go for bidding, the project comes a lot higher, the project gets killed, and you have these great drawings that are never going to be used again. So that's kind of one of the risks with the design bid process. The other one is construction management. And the one that we recommend, and our company's had a lot of experience with, is the design build process. Is that you hire one firm and they work together, and you can actually start the project without actually have final drawings in. And it gives your best value for your money, in our opinion, as a design build process. You can also put a project out, we've seen it, if the town wants to move forward and their affordability is 30 million, 35 million, 40 million, you put that out. We want a guaranteed maximum pricing. And it's kind of interesting to see when if a lot of these projects, how the private sector or the construction industry, they'll work to finding a project to meet the price tag of the project. The design build procurement, it's a two-stage process. If you select to go with that process. Stage one is you qualify 3 to 4 proponents based on overall team qualifications and experiences. And I know in the Ottawa area, there's several highly qualified companies that do provide this types of service. Stage two, after you've pre-qualified 3 to 4 proponents, you do a proposal submission. And the key to that is having really detailed procurement specifications. You want to really outline the design. You want to outline all the materials selected. And then you're going to get value for your money. And then finally, you would negotiate, once you've selected your proponent, it's come within a budget that's acceptable to council. You would negotiate a design build contract with a proponent. Up to finalizing the design build contract, the project can be killed at any time. So, there is some cost involved, but certainly it's kind of a low risk approach. The fourth stage, if you get into the design build process, so phase one, so you're going to construct a new single pad arena. We just threw out some tentative schedules out there to give an idea, how this project can be implemented and the timeframes. So if you were to, start in July 2026, you're looking at about 12 to 14 month construction period. You could have the building up by September 2027. Once the single pad arena is built, you can now demolish the youth arena. And then you would construct the field house. If you were to start in July 2027, you can have a complete project by September 2028. Through the design build process, client or client representative must maintain proper oversight of the project, including regular project progress meetings, design review, monitoring work quality, material selections, and the contractors meeting the specifications of the contract. During the design build process, there is a detailed scope of pre-opening services you need to do. You need to purchase all the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. You need to finalize an operating budget. It probably involve hiring new staff. And you have a whole new building, the field house, so you got to hire additional staff. You got to train the staff. You need to develop an operational plans, recruit staff, and establish an industry best practices document. And the final stage is substantial completion in operations. A critical transition to the design build turnover over the building to the client, doesn't meet the requirements of, again, the contract. You got an extensive contract before you take this building over from the design build firm. You got to make sure it meets all the requirements of the contract. You need to address any construction deficiencies. There always deficiencies. You need to keep the contractors accountable. Through operations, you need to refine facility operations, revenue models, and cost management strategies. It's kind of an ongoing process. Slide 12, please. So as the project nears the final completion of phase one, the focus shifts to preparing for the next critical steps in implementation. The business plan and project scope have been finalized with key stakeholder engagement and outlining financial strategies. The selection option of 1B ensures the development of a new single pad arena alongside a multi-sport field house, maximizing long-term community benefits. If council approves moving to phase two of the process, the next steps include kind of highlight on these, but quickly establishing a project committee, hiring a project development manager, refining partnership agreements with municipal partners to solidify financial commitments, initiating funding applications for provincial, federal, and private sources, conducting preliminary design work to align with operational requirements and budget constraints, develop an RFP selecting a design build contractor by the end of phase two. By transitioning to phase two with a strategic and well-coordinated approach, the proposed project remains on track for successful implementation. This next phase will be crucial in securing funding, finalizing operational models, ensuring a smooth transition into design and construction. Through continued community engagement and stakeholder collaboration, the project will move forward efficiently, reinforcing Smith Falls as a regional leader in recreational facilities and community programming. That concludes our report. And we'll open up the floor to any questions the council may have.
Thank you so much. It was probably one of the most detailed and thorough reports that I've seen in my time on council. So thank you all for all your work on this. I'll turn it over to my colleagues. Just to keep in mind, we have 4 staff recommendations. And as much as we have a recommendation from the consultant on option 1B, there are 4 options listed as well. So if you'd like to comment on those with your questions, or I can circle back to you as well. And Councillor McGuire, you had your hand up first.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I've got some questions on the report first, so maybe I'll stay away from the recommendations.
Sure.
But yeah, we'll see. I think it was really exciting to see the public engagement that was involved in this. It's not very often we see those kind of numbers, and the survey results were really impressive too. When I'm reading through the report, there's items that I'd like to see cleaned up before we would put it through for approval. Overall, the content of it is adequate, I think, but there's stuff where it's got population of 10,500 in certain sections, the 2021 9,254 in other sections. So I'd like to see one population.
Can you speak to that? Yeah, I think it's been a running number.
Could you just step up to the microphone? Sorry. Thank you.
It's an ongoing number. We had initially used the 2021 census, of course, and then talking to staff, we understood that is a much higher number now. So we went to put that in, but we can definitely clean that out. Yeah.
Great. And then in 1.4, it's got the population within a 100-kilometer radius is 48,621 as our catchment. I was wondering, how is that 48,621 calculated? And just to get that section updated, because further down in the document, it's got the 1.2 million as that 100-kilometer radius population. So it's just confusing when we've got all these different numbers trying to get, okay, what are we dealing with, you know?
I think what it is, the 48,000 is actually the catchment of the townships plus Smith Falls area, whereas you're right, the 100 kilometers would include Ottawa itself. So we'd have to refine that, you're right.
And is that 48,000 the entire population of the surrounding municipalities, or is that just the section based on the calculation of cost sharing right now?
It's all combined, that's right.
Okay, so it's really an overestimate of the actual people that would be closest to our facility living in that municipality. Okay. When it comes to 3.1 in the inventory section, I really like the inventory table, but the indoor inventory table is also including outdoor facilities, which I think is good because it's good to have it in there, but it's just confusing when are we talking indoor, outdoor? On the second page, we've got outdoor facilities, indoor facilities, high priority, medium priority. But within those bullet points, there's a mix of things that are existing, say like a bowling alley or a splash pad, and walking trails in town, with things that are non-existing. So I'm just confused of which ones, what are we trying to get across in that section? Is this stuff that we should be looking at or that should be on our radar, or is it existing part of the inventory?
Let's say what it's identifying is some of the gaps in the recreation infrastructure.
Okay.
So identifying some of the gaps just to know what they are.
Okay, so then can we get the things like the bowling alley and the dog park and the trails, let's get that cleaned up, and if we've got that, add it up to the inventory table, I guess, right? When we go to 5.1, this was the only part that really kind of made me, for my idea of the municipality's role in recreation, kind of made me wince, because there's a line that says, like it or not, public recreation is competing with the fitness studio, martial arts, and many other innovative enterprises. And for me, we've got no business competing with not-for-profit groups or private groups. If they can provide the recreation affordably and they've got their clientele in town, I don't want the municipality to get into building a curling rink or a squash court or a dance or fitness studio, because those services are being provided. And furthermore, when we're looking at these big spends, it really leads me to the question of what's the rationale, what's the strategy of spending $30 to $50 million to subsidize a select group of users when people in a basketball league or a volleyball league or the squash and the pickleball players, there's so many activities right now in town where everybody's paying the same taxes, but they're not getting the recreation subsidized by the municipality at the same level. So when we're trying to justify these big spends, it's a real strategic plan side of things, and it's a real mentality of what business is the municipality in, and why would we try to be competing with other groups? So that whole paragraph leaves me kind of uncomfortable with, from a context perspective.
Okay, so Councillor McGuire, I see lots of questions. Do you do one more and then we'll circle back to you after everything?
Sure. We got to get Smith Falls spelled right the same way. I counted 5 times it's missing its S. My last question, I guess, would be how many years would spending the $5 million on the youth arena buy, and how many years to spending the $50 million on new facilities buy? Is it a 30-year amortization, or?
If it's a new building, the lifespan of these buildings right now is 40 to 50 years. So you'll be here for the next 40 or 50 years. If you spent the minimum of $5 million, I mean, you're looking at something. It can be as short as, if you improve your mechanical system, which is a major priority. It does little for the structural problems you have. So it's probably a stop measure gap of 5 to 10 years, possibly.
Okay. So I guess in my head when I hear that, if, $30 to $50 million buys us 30 to 50 years, $5 million buys us 5 to 10 years, we're looking at $500,000 to $1 million a year, no matter which option we go with. But I just, in the context of the fact that we just built a new rink and community facility in 2010, since we built that facility, the costs of maintaining a new building are much higher than I ever expected them to be. We've got seats in that facility that have never been sat in, and we still owe millions of dollars on that facility while the roof is starting to fail with it. So I'm really hesitant when looking at these ideas of, oh, we can increase revenues, we can increase marketing, we can get these facilities usage up 10, 20%, when we've been trying that since the new facility was built in 2010. And I think we've really maxed out where we're at. So the numbers for me are very hard to endorse tonight, but I'm interested to hear what everybody else thinks.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson?
Thanks, Madam Chair. First off, I'd like to begin by thanking Director Clark and the consulting team for presenting such a thorough and detailed study. While I recognize the value of this project, I am concerned about the initial investment cost estimated between 41.4 and 49.2 million. If we proceed, it is critical that the project reflects both current and future needs of our community. Once we commit, there's no turning back, so we must ensure we get it right. A key factor in my final decision will be the availability of fundraising or sponsorship opportunities, such as naming rights for the arena or advertising within the facility, and the availability of grants. Additionally, securing buy-in from the neighboring communities is essential before moving forward. I had some questions about the operating deficit, which you answered, but could part of that difference also be due to increased efficiencies in technology? That's, an increased usage. I do agree that Smiths Falls needs more indoor recreation space. And with that in mind, I will support this report in principle to allow staff to undertake initial design and cost estimates for option 1B, engaging with regional partners in discussions on cost sharing, and develop a final strategy to support both capital and operating costs. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna, do you want to go next, or shall I skip you and come back? All right, Mayor Panko.
Thank you, and very detailed and lengthy report. I think in many ways been looking forward to, but also dreading it, because we know, frankly, it's by far the biggest capital investment the town has ever faced. And even probably adjust for inflation, is still bigger than what we've done in the past. And we know how dependent we will be on grant opportunities. And I think some degree of sponsorships. And so financial modeling and the pro forma is encouraging, but it's based on a lot of assumptions, which we know we love uncertainty in that. But I guess, do we have any recent examples of other municipalities, and I'm sure there's lots of them, who are ahead of us in this process with a similar challenge? Like maybe they're a year or two ahead, where they made the decision a year or two ago how to move forward, and where are they today with regards to the grants they've been able to secure? What type of arrangements have they been able to make with municipal partners? We're not unique from the standpoint that we serve a broader rural area and have a number of municipalities which are connected to user facilities and are part of a recreational cost sharing arrangement. Maybe many don't have 5, but because I think it has been said already by a couple of my colleagues here, we can't do this alone. And we've had great partnerships when it came to helping to cover the operating deficit of $500,000 a year. Well, we're not talking $500,000 a year here. Even $20 million financing over 30 years is going to be about $1.4 million, $1.5 million a year. So that's a 7 or 8% increase on our tax roll, which council could ultimately decide to do that, but that's a big chunk when we've got a lot of other things we need to pay for. So it's looking for those examples. So maybe the best practices where it has worked and how they've been able to achieve success.
Should we pause and let them answer that one?
Yeah, yes. Sure.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
We work right across the entire country. I'll start with Western Canada. The Western Canadian province has done a couple of projects in Alberta, Saskatchewan. The community fundraising campaign is very successful there. We had a recent project, Twin Pad Arena, Twin Gymnasium in Saskatoon, where community fundraising campaign generated $18 million. One donor gave $12 million. I'm not saying you're going to get those numbers here, but in the western part of the country, they've been very successful with the community fundraising campaigns. We have seen the opportunity here with your partners is pretty unique. We don't see a lot of that. So if you can have a bunch of communities coming together, working together, I think it's going to look very favorable when you go to the federal government, the provincial government, looking for funding opportunities. And again, you're pretty unique right now in Ontario because they just announced the funding program specific to recreation facilities. And the province typically in the past few years hasn't really done those types of programs. So that certainly there's an opportunity to take it's $10 million. And of course, on the federal side, there's all sorts of money. And a lot of communities have taken advantage of the Green Municipal Fund that's available. So other communities have certainly taken advantage of those funding opportunities.
Thank you. Another question?
Let me come back to me.
Okay, Councillor Brennan? We can't hear you, Councillor Brennan. Nope.
Right on a note.
All right, we'll circle back to you when you play with your technology there.
If I could just interject for one thing, just back to something that Councilor McGuire said, we weren't focusing on the community center, but one of the things we are going to need to, in the next 5 to 7 years, is think about the replacement of the ice plant at the community center as well. So that's upwards of $3 million that we need to start planning for. You did mention that the roof also needs some help, as we talked about it at budget time. So one of the things that this could also do is buy us some extra time by combining the plants into one. And so is it an added cost? Yes, but is it the same as building two? Not necessarily. Hopefully it's cheaper. So just to keep that in mind. When you are investing in recreational infrastructure, it's a long-term commitment, and it's going to continue to turn over as things come to end of life, and we're going to continue to need to upgrade ice plants and things. And so just to keep that in mind as well, because that would be, if we went with the low-cost option, that's $5 million for the youth arena. I'm not suggesting that you're going to commit to $2 million for the roof on the community center, but another $3 million within the next 5 to 7 years for the ice plant in the community center. So we're pushing 10 at this point in the next few years for the exact same product that we have, which is also missing, evidently, based on the report, a vast swath of community residents who feel like they're not being included and not being supported by the recreational infrastructure. So perhaps my bias is showing on that one, but I'll just leave it up to you.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan, we'll try you again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. So thank you for that presentation. It was an exhaustive report. It was like a book, and I appreciate the time you took to meet with me and my other council members. And so it's an aspirational project, and the mayor asked a question that I was going to ask about other communities that face the same, challenges. It's obvious from the report that the youth arena has very little life left in it. First of all, I would like to know, the Memorial Center was built in 2010, I believe, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was about $10 or $11 million. If we were going to do that today, in today's dollars, I expect it would be the $20 million that you stated in your report.
Chance of that, Nick?
Yeah, I think actually the price point on rebuilding the current Civic Center, because it's 2,000 seats, 1,500 seats, would be more than that's in the report. The report for a new ice facility was more of a community centered ring, so it only has about 200 seats in it, so it's different in size than what that Memorial Center size is. Square footage is cost at the end of the day. So if it's bigger, it's going to cost more, and that would cost more than what we have in our projection.
Thank you.
So would 30 million be reasonable for the seating and what we put up 12 years ago?
Chair, yeah, that would be a reasonable estimate, 30 million to replace
Okay.
that.
Yeah, so just to put some perspective on it. When we talk about, you mentioned the Ontario government program currently available, and we can apply for that right now. And in experience, these infrastructure projects, they're looking for shovel ready. We're nowhere near there. So can we still apply for a grant such as that?
So through the chair, yes, we can. There's a number of infrastructure funds that are available that actually are looking for beginning at studies, beginning at plans. They pay for design, build, that sort of thing. What I'd like to chase as well is through FCM. There's upwards of $10 million that we can get through FCM, and there's a number of studies around greening the recreational infrastructure that we could get. And we're not that they're not looking for shovel ready at that point. So we have some opportunities. There's an RBC Foundation just came out with upwards of between 250,000. Which is not enough, but we'll take it if they give it to us, and upwards of, I think, 2.5 million as well. So there's a number of community foundations that are also coming out that we can look at, and they don't need to be shovel ready.
Thanks for that. And yeah, through the chair, just indulge me for a couple more and then I'll be done. The other thing I was thinking about, and I think I talked to you guys about this, I'm a grandfather that goes to hockey games, and so I've been to the Richcraft Arena and the Sensplex, and fantastic facilities. I think they have 3 ice pads, and then the one in Canada has a soccer dome as well. And I think that Ottawa built that on a sort of a 3P model where private sector gets involved as well. Would that be an opportunity for us here?
Just step up to the mic if you don't mind. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, there are P3 models, and that particular model there, at the end of the day, I don't think a lot of the money came through the hockey club. I think that was all funded through the municipality. The savings were probably having a private sector company operate it, but I think the majority of the funds came through the municipality. I could be corrected, the majority of that financing came through the municipality. And typically you don't see successful P3 operations in smaller communities. You need to look at 4 pads, 4 pads plus an indoor soccer facility, and you just don't have that volume here. There are opportunities under the sports dome. There are companies that could do a sports dome. Cost is a lot lower, but you end up losing all control of that facility. And their main goal is to generate revenue, so you kind of lose that community aspect of youth programming, those other types of important programming that the community relies on.
Thank you. Last question, Councillor.
Yeah, maybe. I would, the other example, of course, is Beckwith, that I don't know, I think it was Kavanaugh was involved in that, but Beckwith runs a big rec facility in their place. So in conclusion, for me, I am supportive of going forward with the recommendation. I've long said that, the people in Smith Falls who don't own skates need to be paid attention to. And I think that if we're talking about for the next half century, we need to do everything we can to try to make this work. And we obviously will not be able to do it alone. And I think that when we built the arena in 2010, we paid for 1/3 of it. So 1/3 of 40 million, it's hard to say, would be palpable. So that would be our goal. So I thanks for the report. It's exciting, and I think it's a legacy project, and I think the town deserves it, but we'll see what we can do. Thank you.
Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of just comments and then some specific questions, or the other way around maybe. Just to all the public watching, our Facebook warriors out there, please take the time to read the report. Council's not approving a $40 million. So read the report. It's online. It's a great read. Do that work, please. The second is around about the ownership. Are you familiar with any? We co-own an airport with Montague Township. Are there any models out there where the municipalities come together and jointly own it, as well, not just fund it?
Yes, I can comment to that. We actually worked with 5 communities in Pictou County, Nova Scotia, and the 5 communities owned the new infrastructure. It was a twin pad facility with a full YMCA, and they owned it jointly as an authority board. And their cost share was representative of, I believe it's population and distance to the facility. But we can get more specifics on that if we need it. But there is an understanding of that. And it's 5 communities that did it, which is still a challenge, but it did work.
Yeah, I would have liked to see some more information on that. That's great. Maybe that would come in a little later on. The other one was more around, this is more my comment, because I'm interested in going to the next step. But I'm also, I just off the top of my head listed similar projects that the municipalities working on, including the Center Street redevelopment, Gallipo Center redevelopment, also the high-speed train stopping in our community, very large. We need more land for housing and more industrial land developed. We have to do that. We have a deficit in our road and sewer work and infrastructure. Hospitals now looking at a long-term 10-plus year redevelopment and a capital campaign around that. And we probably need a new public works facility, not to the same scale, but these are all on our plate of competing priorities. So surprise, surprise. So I'm interested in going to the next level, but the last comment I make is around the consultation. There aren't organized groups out there against arenas. There are lots of organized groups around sports, and that's who we spoke to. So, and I know it's very difficult to get Joe Public just to comment on why they think we should build a new public works garage versus an arena, but that broader voice is we haven't heard from them, and that's why I anticipate. I hope they read that report before they jump the gun, because there's a lot of value. I'm glad we did the report. A lot of value in it.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn?
Thank you. This was a fantastic report. There's so much information in there. And part of what really impressed me was the way you interviewed us. Like, you interviewed the mayor and council individually so that we could have our opinions in there, and you took the time to listen to that. And we're all different. So we all have different opinions, we really do. So this report was a lot of work, has a lot of information in there. A lot of my concerns have already been spoken here, but I do have a few for sure. I'm definitely going to support moving forward with this. I think this is something we need to really look at. I also agree with Councilman McKenna. We need to hear from those other people that have concerns about, they don't play hockey and this kind of thing. But we do have an aging population, and I don't know whether when you were in the arena, if you saw the gentleman out skating with his walker. So you know what? There's a facility that older people are using. Look at the people on the walking track that we have. So we need to continue to provide facilities for all these people to be able to use. I'm in that bracket where, I'm a senior. I need a place to go when I decide to quit work or whatever, to stay active. And that's what keeps people healthy, is being active. It keeps your mind functioning. And so we really have to look at that. So I think there are a lot of people, the people from the pickleball, they have struggled to find a place to play pickleball. They have something at the moment, but it doesn't mean it's going to last. So there's all kinds of things that we need to continue to look at here as we move forward. One of the things, and I was glad to hear that there are municipalities that work together to own the structure. We do have outlying municipalities here that contribute to our facilities. I think we need to have a stronger meeting with them. I think we need to have a group come together where they have representation on that so that they can voice their opinion. Because if we don't have their support, we cannot do this all on our own as the town of Smith Falls. So I think we need to be engaging with them more than we are. And one other thing that I have is, yes, we do have an arena, and yes, it is well used, but I think at the moment we have the staff in there that are working very hard to promote what we have, and that's a big part of this. You can build the Taj Mahal, but if you don't tell people about it, no one's going to come. And I believe that we do have the staff there now that are willing to work hard to promote and to get more people in there of all age groups. We still have to think about the children, but then we have to think about everyone else and getting them there to use this facility. And Smith Falls is the hub. But we're going to definitely need help as we move forward. So I am supporting the recommendation that we do continue. We look at price costing on this. And like was said, if we decide at the last moment that we cannot afford this, then we can walk away from it. It's not that we're tied to it. So let's keep our minds open.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. I'll make a few comments and then we can circle back because I know there's a couple who haven't said their preference. So again, thank you. I appreciate that your report spoke to pickleball, spoke to the senior center. To me, this is a community center and not an ice rink. And for that reason, I would prefer to support 2A versus 1B. And I may be outvoted on that, but I just think that's probably a better place for us to start. So it's a more inclusive place. And one of the comments that struck me, and this is more for you, Director Clark, was that there seemed to be comments around from our municipal partners about us tracking users, and perhaps there's an opportunity that we could track more specifically and accurately so that when we do go to municipal partners, they feel strongly that their voice is being heard.
Yeah, agreed. So, and I just quickly on that, one of the things that I'd like to see embedded in any agreement that we have is a responsibility to have that information. It's not currently in it's not in our current agreement, so we've never gathered it. Recreation facilities are often, unless there's a turnstile, which we don't have, built to just let people in, and we don't stop and frisk people to ask for their location information. So it is difficult to see at any given time who's in the building or when, but there are mechanisms that we can get a better understanding. And I think we've made a commitment and a policy change actually internally to make sure that when we are looking at when we're looking at allocations and those types of things, we need your rosters. We need to know where people are coming from. It's interesting that they're from much further abroad than I even anticipated. And so I think understanding that allows us to rejig some of the relationships that we have within in terms of fees and charges and all of that other stuff. So there's a lot of other things. Full disclosure, I didn't think that this was going to be this much work, but here we are. So I'm excited about it, but it does have a number of different applications and implications as well. So that's one of the pieces that no matter what happens going forward, we need to reconsider how we're doing that. So that's on the table.
Appreciate that. Councillor McGuire and then Mayor Panko.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Great discussion tonight. I've enjoyed listening. I think when I look at the recommendations now, I'd be okay to go with the first one of receiving the report and backing the report in principle as edited. But when it comes to the other three, I don't have enough information to make that decision tonight. Because what we're saying is we're putting this process through where we're not spending money right now, say on capital work. We are going to spend money on staff time. We're going to spend money on planning. And there's several key questions that I need answered before I know that this is the right way to go. The first is that I really like how that the school gymnasiums were included in the report. It says based on user feedback that they're at capacity, but I think our schools are public infrastructure that I don't see them being used as community assets the way they could be. And I want more information on what hours are those gymnasiums available? Are they available on Saturdays and Sundays? And is there opportunities for the municipality to partner with the school board to open those facilities up more? Because there's only one taxpayer at the end of the day. And I'd like to see if a facility is already built, and pickleball could be happening there, or, the basketball and volleyball leagues, I think already happen there. That takes away the need for that field house if we could make those facilities more accessible. The second side that I don't believe was addressed in the report, but was addressed in the comments or the responses, is that if there's a private facility that can build a dome that can host a lot of the activities that would be covered by a field house, I'd much rather see that taken on by somebody that's not the municipality, because we've got a $75 million plus infrastructure deficit. We've got tons of projects that need to be invested in, and we've got limited funds to do it, and we've got a limited debt ceiling to do it. When we talk about a third of $30 million or a third of $50 million being palatable, we just got a water tower project that was unprecedented for the largest project we've ever had to purchase, and this trumps that. It's so much more money than that, and we're not. I don't see that we're giving it the same level of scrutiny because it looks good. Okay, if we can get this grant, if we can get that grant, we're only paying a certain percentage of it. But 30% or 50% of $50 million is still something that I don't think is affordable for a municipality that brings in about $20 million a year in revenue. When I look at the business case in the report as presented right now, it's basically, the way I'm understanding it is that we can spend $30 to $50 million that we're going to need to finance over the lifetime of the asset. And the revenue is that instead of losing $500,000 a year, we're only going to lose $160 million a year. So to me, it doesn't make sense yet. We're still losing six figures a year on a new facility. I don't believe in the projections. I think they're way too optimistic. I think the 48,000 user base is optimistic. And I think that there's also big unknowns with what our neighbors are thinking. So I'd like to get more information on the field house. Last point on this is that for the indoor recreation survey, 22.5% of people referenced hockey as their indoor recreation, but 19.5% referenced swimming. So almost the same number are interested in swimming as an indoor recreation as our hockey. What's the reason that we're going to spend millions, 10 million plus on a field house instead of a pool? So I'd like to get more information on why the field house is that the best place for our investment right now? And until then, that $5 million to keep the youth arena going for another 5-10 years is very appealing. So
Thank you. Mayor Panko?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm mixed with some of the decisions we're going to make tonight, but one question, I guess, is we haven't got deep into the various options, really. Like 2B as an example is one which would be a complete retrofit of the existing youth arena, new change rooms. I don't know what the new hall, a new NHL size ice pad. Basically, it's expanding what's there right now, and it's about $12 to $15 million less than building a completely new facility. So I appreciate some of the cons that indicated here is that the operating expense, the reduction in operating expenses may not be as good. But if we're financing $12 to $50 million less, I don't mind paying a little bit more in operating expenses. So why would that one not rise to the top as an example?
Through me, Chair. One of the reasons it came out of our community engagement was that option is probably going to need to be done over a 2-year period. So it will be intrusive to the programming. You're probably looking at over 2 years where the building's got to be closed. And with the feedback we got from the community was that they needed their 2 arena ice pads. But it certainly is an option that could be further investigated. You can do a 2-stage approach to that too. You
You can build the change rooms on the outside the first year. Second year, when that's, or probably the other way around, you do the floor that you need to do, all the structural stuff you need to do. You can do that probably as soon as the ice hockey season is over in April and in March. You got a good 6 months. Do a bulk of that work and have the building up, maybe ready for. It'd be tough to have the building up ready for hockey season, but you maybe have it ready for November, December. And you're looking at that over a 2-year period. That certainly is an option that could be further explored.
And if that was completed, that type of project, do we then get 40, 50 years out of that, just that modernized and rebuilt facility?
Depending on the amount of money you put into it, you should be able, structural, mechanical is good. You should get, a good 40 years out of that.
Okay.
In our opinion.
So I'd like to see us continue to advance this. I think there's doing nothing isn't an option, and I'm not convinced the $5 million retrofit, upgrade, repair, Band-Aid job is going to really serve the community for the long term. And I think we recognize we are a growing community. We've benefited from some of that in recent years. To enable that to continue and to meet recreational needs, I think we've got to make a bigger decision here. That's not tonight, I don't think. But I think we need to endorse more of the recommendations to enable us to make these steps forward. So I think we need to be able to meet with our partners, have some conversations. We also need to empower staff to pursue some financial strategies and to see what grants may be out there. I know there's already work that is happening in those areas, but we need to be nimble and prepared to move ahead. And I guess we begin with the end in mind. Where do we see our community in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? And what do we need to do to make sure that this meets recreational needs? And I agree, Fieldhouse is really attractive. I mean, when we look at what we're hearing from our community, we look at the volume of people who will involve themselves in activities outside of hockey and skating and figure skating. I think it's a very important addition. Maybe it's a phased approach in how we get there. But I think we need to continue this conversation and make a ultimate decision, I would think, within months, if not sooner.
Thank you. So, yes.
Mayor?
Yes, you may.
Thanks. On the recommendations, I think I counted 4 of them. Are we talking, do you have a sense of cost, Director Clark, of doing that? Is that all in-house work or is that consultants?
To that question, it would be probably a mix. So I can certainly figure out the cost. It wouldn't be as much, and they can shake their heads or nod behind me, as the initial cost of the arena feasibility study, for sure.
So having conversations with our partners is...
Well, it's a matter of business. So, I mean, this just happens to dovetail really nicely with having those conversations, and it gives us a heck of an agenda item. So,
thank you. And that was a great question. CEO Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I think that's an important question that we need to understand the answer to it before we move too far. But I would imagine the financial strategy will require mining more information from these gentlemen here. For instance, the really good question that the mayor asked about to be or not is a good one, because there are operating implications there. So one of the questions that comes to mind is, can you share a plant in 2B and realize efficiencies? Can you extract the heat generated from the arena and heat the field house in 2B? So those are the kinds of items that may not affect the capital cost, but will certainly affect the operating cost. So we would need to put our heads together, but I think our treasurer could lead that discussion. We may need some resources to come in and help, but it would be a fairly small amount, a modest amount in the context of the project that we're talking about here. But I think if from tonight, if we had a preference of those that council wanted to further study and those that are not worthy of further study, that would certainly narrow the scope and keep it more affordable and more, we could get back to you quicker.
Thank you. And I think that we do have consensus to go ahead and receive and endorse and do some costing and talking to our partners. So the staff recommendation was supported widely. There are some questions, of course, that have come up that maybe you could circle back with some of those answers, like school usage details, pool versus field house, and what it would cost to proceed with this work. So if we can leave that task with you. And in terms of the preferred options, the majority seem to like 1B, although 2A and 2B were also highlighted as having potential. Does that summarize the conversation fairly well?
I think so.
How does that sound, Director Clare?
Sounds good. And if I could just address the pool piece. I get a lot of questions from the public about why don't we have a pool? I'd love a pool. And my immediate response is because they're $60 million. And that's not an exaggeration. As someone who oversaw and supported the development of a pool in 2016 for $40.2 million, I remember thinking that's an astronomical amount of money. It was on time and under budget. And we were working with northern markups. But the same type of facility is currently being built in Ottawa and Riverside South for approximately $66 million. It's about $1 million plus a year to operate. A pool, I'm not a swimmer anymore. I used to swim. I've competitively swam for 18 years of my life. I've coached for 30 years. I love it. I miss it. I want to be a part of it. It's not feasible for this community at this point from my professional perspective. That said, if the community wants to make that decision, then that's up to them. That's a different type of study. We didn't include that in this scope. It would be a different reality. There's a lot more people that would need to be, very similar undertaking actually, but it's a different type of person who often engages in swimming. So if that was something that we'd want to look to doing in the future, absolutely. I'd love a pool. Terrify me a little bit, but I think it's a good question to ask. But at this point, it wasn't a part of the scope because it's a ridiculously insane amount of money because the recreational infrastructure is so rapidly expanding in terms of cost. So that's the short answer to why we didn't talk about a pool.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think you've got clear direction from us. And again, I'd like to thank our consultants for all the work that they've done and for being here tonight in person. That was really helpful so we could grill you with questions. So appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any committee, board, and external organization updates?
Just from the Old Home Week Committee. We met again last week. We had and I'm not going to steal the thunder, but our fundraising has gone very well. And Canopy Growth has stepped up in a big way and helped us. And they'll be making an announcement very soon. And we also had a tour of the facility when we were there, receiving the fake check. But there are 250 people working there, 2 shifts, and they're hiring. So that's a great story, and they're really pleased to be in Smith Falls, and they said that they are talking about opening up tours during Old Home 2 a day for anybody over 19, organized tours of the facility. So it's just Old Home Week is really creating that vibe, which is great.
Wonderful. Thank you for being on that committee. Councilor Bryan?
Yeah, I do have one, just a quick one. I met with the Recreation Hall of Fame Committee this week, and they're preparing for their big event during Old Home Week on August 3rd, upstairs in the community center at 1:30. But they asked me to relay to you and the public that they're still accepting nominations for the Recreation Hall of Fame, and that will end on March 19th. So they asked me to put that out there. They have several nominations for teams and individuals, so those names and teams will be forthcoming. But March 19th, if anyone wants to nominate someone or a team, the nomination forms are available at the community center.
Thank you. Okay, so no correspondence items, no notice of motions. We have a recommended motion for adjournment moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor McGuire, that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:48 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. All in favor? Carried.
Bye-bye.